Well, that's that. The Union has won the Civil War and slavery is outlawed by the 13th Amendment. Now all we gotta do is conduct our Reconstruction plan. Oh no. Damn it, no!
Andrew Johnson was the 17th President of the United States, serving from 1865 to 1869, having taken over as president when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated as he was Lincoln's vice president. Johnson spent most of his life before the American Civil War working in Tennessee politics, and later representing the state in the federal government. In fact, Johnson was actually senator when several southern states decided to secede, including Tennessee. What's interesting about this is that Johnson was the only senator from a seceded state to remain with the Union, although he did have a bit of an oopsie when his speech about remaining with the Union ended up alienating Southern senators. Regardless of that blunder, his steadfast support for the Union as a Southerner caught Lincoln's attention, who appointed him military governor of Tennessee when much of it was reclaimed by the Union in 1862. Based on what I've said so far, Johnson doesn't sound so bad, but oh boy. Oh boy. Just you wait. When Lincoln sought re-election in 1864, he was trying to find a way to show national unity in a quickly ending civil war. Andrew Johnson, who, as I said, remained with the Union despite Southern sympathies, was a perfect choice for a VP. In fact, Lincoln actually decided to drop the Republican label and the two ran together on the National Union ticket. Of course, Lincoln won the 1864 election, but was unfortunately assassinated by John Wilkes Booth just a month into his second term. Johnson was actually also planned to be killed, but his attacker got drunk. How fortunate. The result was Lincoln being unable to carry out his plans for Reconstruction, and that meant Andrew Johnson was in charge. At first, it seemed like Johnson was going to be tough on the South, as he set a bounty on Jefferson Davis, the Confederate president, at $100,000. So much for that shit. You see, Johnson wasn't really interested in the plight of the newly freed African Americans. He was more focused on getting the rebel states quickly back into the Union, and his own re-election, like a selfish prick. To him, African American suffrage was a distraction, which was straight up bullshit as the southern states were in economic chaos, and making them allow African Americans to vote could have easily been a term to return to the Union and gain its assistance. Regardless, Johnson got away with the neglect as Northerners tolerated it because they thought it might help ease the Southern states back into the Union. And to be honest, many Northerners were racist themselves and were not in favor of suffrage for African Americans. However, the implementation of black codes in the South and former Confederates attempting to enter the Congress pushed Northerners over the edge. Johnson kept making things worse by deciding that defeating radical Republicans would be the best way to implement his plans, rather than confronting the southern states, despite not agreeing with their provocative actions. Worse still, Johnson loved to veto legislation that would help African Americans, such as those to grant them citizenship. In 1866, even the moderates in Congress urged Johnson to sign the Civil Rights Act, which he still fucking vetoed. And get this, he claimed it discriminated against whites.
What?
For the first time in history, the Congress actually overrided Johnson's presidential veto. Vetoing the act was a great mistake for Johnson, as it turned away even his moderate allies and set the course for political warfare. This continued when Republicans tightened their grasp on Congress in late 1866. The process for the rest of Johnson's presidency was that the Republican Congress would pass legislation, Johnson would veto it, and then Congress would override him. In 1868, Johnson's constant battle against Congress came to head when he desperately sought a replacement for Edwin Stanton, a radical Republican serving as his Secretary of War. The Tenure of Office Act forced Johnson to seek advice and consent from the Senate for all of his cabinet appointments. After General William Sherman turned him down for the position, Johnson no longer cared what the Senate had to say, and he dismissed Stanton, replacing him with Lorenzo Thomas. Stanton called bullshit and refused to leave his physical office. Johnson's dismissal of Stanton was grounds for impeachment, as he violated the Tenure of Office Act by dismissing him without approval, and thus, on February 24, 1868, the House approved the impeachment of Andrew Johnson, making him the first president to ever be impeached in American history. He managed to avoid impeachment by only one vote in the Senate. By the end of 1868, he had pardoned all Confederates, including Jefferson Davis, and he wasn't very popular in the Democratic Convention, making it clear that his time as president was up. Johnson left office in March of 1869. He became the first former president to return to the Senate in 1875 and died 5 months into his term. How sad. Andrew Johnson was a stubborn asshole. While you could praise him for sticking to what he believed in, he was deaf to the plight of African Americans, and his leniency on the South allowed white dominance to continue for almost a century, and the issues plague the United States to this day. Even discounting that, he was a steadfast politician at a time where negotiation and compromises were key to reconstructing the Union. So in short, fuck Andrew Johnson.